Now, I'm gonna say something that might absolutely get me cooked in the comments, especially being that this is my first video. But I genuinely think that red pill content is destroying masculinity way worse than it is helping it. And my reason for that is not coming from a point of some place like I've never watched it or never consumed it or I don't believe in it, but this is coming from somebody that has went down that rabbit hole, and um, I don't think that I'm better than anyone who did or is still there. And part of me still is like I get it from somebody that's been down that way, but because I was really in it for a while, like it was my diet, like it was every video that I watched, every video that I consumed was that for probably about 2 years, and I thought it was helping me, but looking back at it, I really don't think it was, and I want to be honest about that because I feel like nobody, or at least not nobody anymore, but I definitely think there are some people, and people are becoming a lot more aware to it, but I think there are a lot of people still that talk about it from the angle like it is very positive, and I don't agree with that at all. Um, Everyone's either fully in the red pill camp or there's some guy that's completely on the opposite end of it, and there's no middle ground. And I feel like there very much is a middle ground that exists, and a lot of us do live in that. But it can kind of be a scary place to be because we live in this world that is so polarizing with one extreme to the next. Being kind of in that middle ground can kind of be an intimidating spot to be in. But that's kind of where I feel like I lay at. But I feel like a lot of people do as well. So that's kind of why I'm making this, because I feel like this might reach a lot of people. But I want to start from the beginning, right? Because I think it's important to understand why people find content like that in the first place. Because it didn't just happen randomly, right? Like nobody wakes up one morning and goes, "Yeah, let me spend the next 6 hours watching guys tell me women are manipulative and, you know, to never need a relationship and to treat women like trash and the whole world is rigged against me." And it doesn't just start that way, right? But like something has to happen first, right? And for me, it was kind of a combination of things: growing up, being bullied, not having a lot of friends, kind of being isolated. Uh, and having a really, really low self-esteem. I'm being very insecure in myself, and I just felt like I had done everything that I was supposed to do, though, and I followed the right path, followed the system. I did what my parents wanted me to do. I tried to fit in, but still, just nothing really worked, and I didn't really understand why. And on top of that, I kind of just felt invisible. Like I was going through the motions every single day, working, school, doing what I was supposed to do, and doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I just felt like nothing was really clicking, and I didn't have anyone in my life really being there to be able to sit me down and explain any of it to me or anyone to really relate to. No conversations like that really ever happened. So I just kind of went online looking for answers, like we all do nowadays, right, with social media and being able to reach so many people across the world, where we grew up and where our real environment that we live in. There's only so much reach and so many people that we can talk to and connect to. But nowadays with the internet, the possibilities are unlimited. We can talk to and reach as many people as there are in the world. Damn near. And so, what I found was just like many of us was that there are these guys who spoke just with so much confidence and conviction. And that's what got me first, at least. It's not even necessarily that what they're saying, it's the confidence with how they say it. You're sitting there and you're confused and you're lost and you're in this helpless state. And here's this guy on a private jet or a yacht with a bunch of women, money, whatever, telling you that he has completely figured out. And the reason that your life isn't working is simply because, nobody told you the truth about society, and everyone's been lying to you, and the system is rigged against you. Um, and he's going to give you the real information to escape and to live a life like he has. And, it feels so liberating and so incredible. Like, oh, yes, like finally it makes sense now. Um, Finally somebody gets it. Um, and I genuinely understand why people, so many people like myself fall into that, because I did for a long time. And we're not gonna sit here and make anyone feel stupid watching it. And hey, like by all means, this is all an opinion, right? If you disagree, then so be it. And if that content or consuming that type of content fits your life and resonates with you, then more power to you. We all consume different things, right? But what I started noticing after like probably like a year and a half of kind of being really in that realm when I first started, I guess you could say, reflecting on myself and why I was the way that I was and why I was consuming the things that I um, was kind of just because I started to see everything as a transaction, right? Like every single interaction I had, I'm like running it through this filter in my head, right? Where, does this person, what is this person's angle? What is their motive? And why, this video, why was this video made? What do they gain from making this video? And who can they be trying to reach and why? Are they being genuine, or are they trying to extract something from me or their audience? Um, And it wasn't just with women, right? Like it was with everyone. And I'd be hanging out with my friends. In the back of my head, I'm analyzing whether the friendship is actually adding value to my life, or whether I'm getting too much from it or not enough, and whether I should be investing this much time into something else that could really be adding to my life and helping to get me to the places that I want to go. Be talking to a family member, and there's like this little voice in the back of my head questioning their motives. We all kind of have those friends and those family members that we kind of love from arm's length away, and but we still feel that guilt or that obligation to be there for them. And especially I feel it a lot at work. Just constantly this mode of everyone um, is either an asset or a liability, and I need to figure out which one before I can choose to really invest my energy into anything. And I know this might sound like a really selfish or narcissistic way of thinking, right? But I don't mean it in the way of like someone's value as a human being, right? But I just mean in terms of our relationships, because the way that I can perceive someone and the value that they add to my life can be entirely different to who they are to somebody else, right? But everything is subjective, and that's all I mean by it. And the content that I was watching told me that this was a good thing, right? And this is what what this is supposed to look like and what it means to see the world as it actually is, and not through some naive lens that society programmed into you. Uh, but here's the thing, at least in my opinion, I think I wasn't more aware from living and thinking that way. It really just isolated me even more and made me even more alone. Like my actual relationships got worse during this period, not better, right? Like my friendships, my family members started to feel just more hollow, because I wasn't actually showing up as a real person anymore. I was showing up as this guy who constantly evaluating everyone, sizing everyone up, uh, trying to get something out of everything, um, like keeping score, and I never really was able to let anybody in because that content basically told me that letting anyone in was a weakness, and that weakness was the worst thing you could, or weak was the worst thing that you could possibly be. And I thought that that was growth, and I genuinely thought it was evolving and becoming a better version of myself. And I was actually just slowly cutting everyone off, every real human connection I had, friendship, family members, relationships, whatever it was, and just replacing it with a sense of superiority over them that didn't really translate well into anything in my actual life. I felt smarter, but I wasn't really happier. I just felt, more aware, like I was above everybody else. But realistically, I wasn't more successful with anything I was supposedly learning about from these videos. I just kind of felt isolated. It made me isolated from, any real human connection. And I think that's one of the most negative parts about this, right? Because eventually I'd realize something about the way this content is actually structured. And once I saw it, it's kind of something like, once you realize it, you can never really unsee it. Like with, when you're a little kid and you find out Santa Claus isn't real, like, you try to tell yourself, there's no way it can't be. But it's, once you hear it, once you see it, you can never really, get it out of your head. Um, and and the main thing that I came to the conclusion of is that the content does not actually want you to get better, right? Because if you think about it, when they're making this content, they are making it to reach these guys that are losers, or they feel like they're losers, and they're looking for all these solutions to their lives. If you find those solutions, if you magically stop becoming a loser or whatever it is you want to call it, you now have no more motive or reason to watch their content, to subscribe to the courses, to the communities, or whatever it may be. Uh, their audience is gone, right? Just think about how every single video is structured. There's always a new thing to be angry about, a new behavior to analyze, or a reason why your life isn't where you want it to be or where they say it should be. Um, reasons always very conveniently points outward, right? It's women or society or the economy or your relationships or the system, or whatever it is. Uh, Men are always being raised as the superiority, and it's always something external. I just, as what true masculinity is, in my opinion, I don't think that fits the motive very much, and it's just not a way that I want to live my life anymore. And just look at some of the stuff that's worth talking about right now. I'm not saying none of it is real, but just when it comes to real self improvement, um, there's supposed to be this endpoint, right? Like you identify a problem, you work on it, you make progress, and move on. And that's how actual growth is supposed to work. But this content, never really gets you to that point. There's always a new enemy. There's always a new, vindictive motive. Um, and I'm not saying that all these guys are sitting here and they're consciously thinking about this, right? They're trying to plan to how to keep people stuck and how to keep men, buried, to keep feeding their content and their audience and their courses and whatever it is. But I just think, how the algorithm works. And, many people, it's kind of a copycat system, right? Like we're all kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and being inspired by each other and making our own iterations of things. But with how algorithms work, especially on social media, like the content that keeps you engaged, and the content that keeps you there and keeps you in that state of like nothingness, like brain rot and doom scrolling, whatever it is, that content is going to get promoted and rewarded far better and more than other types of content. Um, and the most messed up part about it is that you feel like you're making progress while you're stuck because you're learning things, right? Like you're consuming information and you kind of get that high of like watching self-improvement videos, uh, and this red pill content, and you get that like rush of feeling like, okay, you got the answer now, you're gonna be on it. um, but nothing in your real life is actually changing, and sometimes the act of that is more procrastination than it is actual self-improvement. And I lived this way for almost 2 years. um, and what I think is actually getting lost in all of this, and this part I really want to get into, is there's a real conversation to be had about men right now. Like genuinely, there is something going on with guys, and it's not nothing, right? And I think a lot of guys feel it, and a lot of people are becoming more keen to it and being able to express it. And I'm just trying to contribute to that. I guess with this, it's hard to kind of articulate this part why this content is so appealing, because at least someone is acknowledging that something is off. Um, but the problem is what the content offers as a solution, because the solution it keeps selling you is essentially just a different costume, right? Like instead of being the guy who doesn't have it figured out, you become the guy who's seen and been through everything and is above it all and walks a certain way, talks a certain way, and never shows that anything affects him. And that's not what masculinity is supposed to be like. um, I've been around people who I think are genuinely strong, and I'm talking about the kind of person, when something goes wrong, you want them in the room, right? Like the first person, something unfortunate just happened, who's the first person you call? A problem solver, a provider, someone who can really help others and see others and listen to others and make them feel valued and feel seen and feel taken care of, without a word. Um, and there's so many people, there's probably someone in your life that you can think of, you know, in that description who fits that role. Like for me, like my dad, he is a lot like that, and I think about him a lot when I think of this stuff, because he never talked about being a man, never posted about it, never built a brand about it. That's just how he lived. He went to work every single day, came home, but he showed up every single day and he handled the things he needed to handle. He took care of me, my family, and you know when he handled the things, he was honest, even when it was uncomfortable, when it was probably easier not to be, when he had made a mistake, when he had messed something up. He didn't need anyone to validate that, because he had a life he had actually built with his own hands, um, that he had actually built his own hands, and everyone around him, including me, his own son, could see that. It's not something you can really fake. Um, and you definitely can't buy it from a course. But there's a version of masculinity that this content sells you, that is obsessed with the perception. It's obsessed with how you're being seen and whether you're being respected and whether someone is testing you or taking advantage of you. And it's honestly exhausting. I was exhausted by the end of it, and just constantly running this analysis on every situation, every relationship possible. And and real strength doesn't work like that, right? Like strong people aren't spending that much energy thinking about whether they're being perceived as strong, how much emotion they're showing, who they're showing it to, and if because they're just too busy, just living life as a man, taking care of others, being respectful, inclusive of everybody, um, being a true listener, and being able to validate other people and provide and take care of others. And I think that type of content just it sucks your energy and your attention, and it gives you back a feeling of superiority, this like superiority complex, that doesn't actually help you build anything real. I look back at that 2 year period and I think about what I could have put that energy into, and it's kind of painful. But also I kind of think of how everybody says everything happens for a reason. I think back to that, and I realized I couldn't really get to where I am now if I didn't go through that period. um, and I don't come from that now having another superiority complex where I think I'm better uh, than people who are maybe still living that way, consuming that type of content. I'm just more, I feel better about myself in the way that uh, decisions that I'm making, the type of person I am, the type of man that I am, and making the decisions in line with who I want to be. And it fulfills me in that way, but not in a way to belittle other people, because I never think that your motive or your goal should be to try to be above somebody else, but to be above the person in the mirror and who you were a day ago. Um, and so what I'm saying is to just be honest with yourself. Be honest, like with truly who you are, and not red pill content or any type of content, but um, whether the things that you're consuming, the things that you're watching, the things that you're feeding your brain and your mind is making your life better. And if it's actually contributing to the steps, to the goals and the things and the dreams that you want to accomplish. Um, and not just internally and in your mind, but in your actual life, like your real relationships, the real actions you're taking, the real decisions that you're making, the things that are impacting your reality. Because that's the thing, none of this content prepares you for the quiet. When you're just sitting there and you're in your own thoughts, there's no one around to distract you. There's no content to consume. There's nothing, no community to talk to, but just you alone, with your mind. And I think a lot of guys and a lot of people are consuming this content specifically to avoid that question, and to avoid that moment of being alone and internalizing it and having to reflect on themselves as a person and as a man and where they are now and where they want to be. And I think this content knows that on some level, whether the creators admit it or not. But I think that that's why it never actually resolved anything, because the moment it resolves something, you sit down in the quiet and you're fine and you don't need to watch anymore, right? Like once, if this content actually was a solution, there wouldn't really be an audience for it. And I spent 2 years watching that content and trying to be better and trying to self-improve, and I came out on the other side of it more isolated, more paranoid, and just more alone than I ever was before. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic or try to hook you here. Obviously, the video movements at the end here, but I think there are a lot of guys watching this right now or watching that type of content right now who are in the middle of that same thing, and maybe if you made it this far, it is something that resonates with you. And you can feel that something is off. You just can't quite figure out what it is. And I don't have any answers here. Obviously, this is just my idea, but maybe it can start to get you on the right track, as this idea did for me. Um, and if that is you, I just want to say, like, this is not coming from a standpoint of judgment. Um, I genuinely think that you deserve, what is best for you and where you want to be. Yeah, like I said, I don't have some perfect answer for what masculinity is or supposed to look like. I'm still figuring that out myself and living every single day, just trying to be better, as I was yesterday. And I'll probably be trying to figure what that looks like. Probably trying to be figuring out what that looks like for a long time. And it's fine, right? But that, it's just what being a person is and being a human being is, and experiencing this life that we're all experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Um, but let me know in the comments what you're thinking, because I genuinely want to hear if this is something that you might be going through or might be experiencing in your own life. If you're maybe currently in it or past it. But I appreciate you watching if you made it this far. This is my first video of many to come. I just plan on kind of sharing my ideas, talking about them in a way that I perceive them, and just things that are going on in my life, and hoping to maybe resonate with someone out there and help you. But if you made this far, I want to say thank you, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.